Hi there. So this little review is on the portion of the exam that was on conversions, which we covered sort of right before the exam. So a lot of people need a little bit more review and work on this before they retest. So hopefully you have reviewed your notes and done a couple of the practice problem sets before you start this retest today. In any case, the idea of a conversion is that we are changing the units of something without changing the value. So let's see here, changing the units of a variable without changing the amount of that variable that we have. So you should be pretty familiar with this. For example, if someone said to you, give me $2 and I'll give you 200 pennies, right? That's a conversion. We're converting dollars into pennies, but we're not changing the amount of the money that we had. That's the basic idea with a conversion. So the thing about conversions is we really want to see that you can do it our way. And I know that's like frustrating when a teacher says it's not enough to just get the right answer. You have to get the right answer my way. And I'm not really the kind of teacher that does that typically in a lot of problems, in a lot of scenarios in physics, but I do it this time because this is one skill that you're really going to want to have when you move to chemistry, and also just in life. I use conversions all the time. So I'm not going to ask you guys just to like take my word for it a lot in this class, but this is one of those cases where trust me when I say you want to learn how to do it, and you want to learn how to do it this way because it's really going to save you a lot of time down the road. So when you're doing a conversion, you're trying to go from one unit to another. The first thing that I do is I try to come up with a plan, right? And that plan basically involves knowing the facts that connect one variable to another. So if I wanted to know how many seconds were left in class, right? Or how many seconds a 2-hour long class was. So the question is something like convert 2 hours into seconds. The first thing I want to do is have a plan. And that plan basically connects hours to seconds. You probably don't know how many seconds are in an hour, but you probably do know how many minutes are in an hour. So my first part of my plan might be going from hours to minutes. And then the second part of the plan would be from going from minutes to seconds, because I can connect minutes to seconds. I know a fact, right? And so the key thing is each one of these little steps, we should know a fact. So a conversion fact is some amount of something equals some amount of something else. So a couple examples of conversion facts that we're going to be using are 1 hour equals 60 minutes. That should be a fact that most of you guys have drilled into your head by now. A second fact that does the second half of this connection is that 1 minute equals 60 seconds. So those are facts that we can use to help us do conversions. So what we do from here is we take the conversion facts and we're going to turn them into possible conversion factors, and that's a different thing. So conversion factor is a ratio factor of two things. So a ratio is like a fraction. It has a numerator and a denominator, or a top and a bottom of the fraction. And the fraction has to have the two parts of the conversion fact on one on the top and the other on the bottom. Okay. So basically a conversion factor turns a fact into a fraction. It turns it into a fraction. And the cool thing about this fraction is the fraction is actually equal to 1, because if the top and the bottom are equal to each other, if we know that 60 seconds equals 1 minute, then dividing them by each other is actually equal to 1. But in any case, so if we had that first fact was 1 hour equals 60 minutes. So we're going to turn that fact into a fraction. There's actually two possible fractions we can turn it into. We can turn it into the fraction of 1 hour on top and the 60 minutes on the bottom. And we'll call that option A, okay? And option B is the flip of that, 60 minutes on the top and 1 hour on the bottom. And that's option B. So there are always two conversion factors that you can make out of a single fact. And the reason why you want to make them both is because depending on what you're trying to convert, sometimes one is more appropriate and sometimes the other is more appropriate. So let's just say we're going to start off and do our first step. We want to go from 2 hours into minutes. We'll get into seconds later on. We have to decide which conversion factor to use. So the reason I would choose one versus the other is because I want to get rid of this unit here. I want to get rid of the hours. We already said I want to turn the hours into minutes. And the way I do that is by canceling it out. And hopefully you learned in math class that, like, if you want to cancel out a 4, the way you do is you divide by 4, right? And then we cancel out the 4. If you want to cancel out the letter X, what I would do is I would divide by X, and we're going to cancel it out. So over here we have this hours, and it may help you to write that as 2 hours over 1 if you want to see that it's clearly on the top of the fraction. But usually I just leave it as 2 hours, and remember that that 2 hours is on the denominator or on the top of this fraction, and nothing is on the bottom of that fraction, that first one. So I'm going to make a conversion factor over here. I'm going to draw a line right down the middle, and I want to pick one that has hours on the bottom so I can cancel out the hours that's on the top. Okay, so I had those two conversion factors. I had the 1 hour over 60 minutes, and then I had the 60 minutes over 1 hour. And in this case, I want to pick option B because you see this has the hour on the bottom. So I'm going to put this 1 hour right there and the 60 minutes on the top. And that's going to allow me to cancel out the hours in this conversion. I could just go ahead and do the math right now, but I'm actually going to put in my second conversion factor as well. So we talked about our second step here was going to be converting the minutes into seconds. And we knew we had we have our fact of 60 seconds equals 1 minute. So I can make that into two other conversion factors, 1 minute over 60 seconds or 60 seconds over 1 minute. So I'm going to look here and I'm going to say to myself, I want to cancel out this minutes. The way I do that, I have a minutes again. This is on the top. If you look at right, all these things on the up here on the top are on the top, 2 hours and 60 minutes. I want to cancel that out by getting a minutes down here on the bottom. So I'm going to pick factor B again, and I'll do 60 seconds on the top. So that's going to let me cancel out minutes. So you can see now we've canceled out every unit that we have except for the seconds. And that was the goal, was to figure out what our answer was in seconds. So that's what's left. And I know that I've accomplished my goal as far as the units go. Now it's just a question of actually plugging this into the calculator. And the way you do it is, again, I'm going to draw a line for the top and the bottom. And I'm going to go and find all the values that are on the top of the fraction. I've got a 20 and a 60 and a 60. So those all have to get multiplied by each other, 20 times 60 times 60 on the top. And then I look at the bottom and I have a 1 and a 1. So at the bottom, I'm going to do 1 times 1. So in your calculator, you're going to type in 20 times 60 divided by 1 times 1, and you're going to get an answer. I would encourage you to go ahead and try that yourself. I'm not going to actually do it right now. I do want to show you, though, why you bother making those two conversion factors. So let's say instead I had a question like convert 12 seconds into minutes. Okay, we already made that conversion factor earlier, right? We knew that 1 minute equals 60 seconds. And we made our two conversion factors. We made the 1 minute over 60 seconds. And we made the 60 seconds over 1 minute. And so when I solve this problem, I'm going to start with my 12 seconds and I'm going to get ready to set up my conversion factor. This time, though, you'll notice that it's seconds is on the top, and I want to get rid of that seconds and turn it into minutes. So I'm going to pick the conversion factor that has seconds on the bottom. That's going to be option A over here, this 1 minute over 60 seconds. So I'm going to put in that conversion factor, 1 minute over 60 seconds, because this is going to allow me to cancel out seconds and leave myself with the minutes that I want. Okay. If I chose the other one, if I chose the wrong conversion factor, you'll see what happens, right? I'm going to want to cancel out seconds, but this is a seconds on the top. I don't have a seconds on the bottom to cancel out. What I have is seconds times seconds over minutes, which doesn't cancel anything out. So if you end up getting yourself in a situation like this, you should hopefully really quickly see that you don't have a canceling out situation. So you should try the other conversion factor. So back to our original problem. We know that our answer is going to be in minutes because we've canceled out seconds. The math, we're just going to multiply together all the values on the top. So 12 times 1 divided by, the only thing we have in the bottom is 60. So in your calculator, you would just type in 12 times 1 divided by 60. So I hope that running through a couple of these practice problems, and hopefully you took notes on what is a fact, what is a conversion factor, how do we choose the right factor, and then how do we actually do the math to get our answer. All right, that's all I'm gonna do. Please feel free to check in with me if you need help, and good luck on your retest.